Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your final DC Spotlight of 2024 for Christmas Day. Obviously, this is coming out late. Again, just apologies. I mean, nothing we can do. Usually we record on Tuesdays. That was Christmas Eve, followed by Christmas on Wednesday. Most comic shops weren't open. I had to go into the office on Thursday. Rocky had commitment yesterday, so yeah, we're recording this on Saturday. We'll drop it the same day. At least we get a chance to talk about the books. And the other part of it being 17 DC titles. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. It's
Yeah.
Christmas time. Typically, things slow down in terms of releasing content toward the end of the year. Yeah, we get it. It's the all in era. Things have been pretty exciting. But yeah, just for future reference, don't put out 17 books the last week of the year,
It's crazy.
especially if the last week of the year is on Christmas Day. Don't put out seven. There's no need. There's no need for this many books. Like you have the first issue of Metamorpho. You're telling me you couldn't push that back a couple weeks? We have the third issue of Batman Gargoyle of Gotham. That thing's so late, nobody remembers what's happening. No one cares anyway. So don't have it come out on this day. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, bad call. I'm gonna call it like I see it. It's just terrible choice to have this many books come out. And then overall, I didn't think it was a particularly strong week. Without question, the weakest DC All In era week. With 17 books. With 17 books, most of the books in my top five wouldn't be a top five book most weeks. Most weeks of the All In era, they wouldn't make the top five. And yet, with 17 to choose from, there's books in my top five that aren't worthy of top five. Yeah, not a great week. Not a present under the tree from DC.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic year for DC overall. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, this is how you're going to go out with the last week of the year. Yeah, I'm disappointed. So I don't know. How did you feel about it, Rocky?
Well, I tend to agree with you. Maybe there's like three or four strong contenders here that I enjoyed, but for the most part, it was uh, lots of DC titles that just felt a little bit, maybe because it was so an overwhelming number of titles that maybe just for that bias and wanting to enjoy Christmas and wanting to enjoy family more and comics a little bit less on the 25th of December. It was a little frustrating reading so many, but I agree with you. It's a little down, but still not to for what it's worth. Don't be dismayed. Those people listening, DC still had a stellar year, had a great year for DC. It ended with a lot of comics on December 25th.
Yeah, really. I mean, it really did, and it's telling. Like you sent over your top five. It was actually three. It was actually only
Well,
three.
I mean, I can talk about five, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
wanted to be
Yeah.
fair to you because you always are
Yeah.
so fair to me. You let me. I would have some of my top five overlap with yours, and I could
Overlap.
only
Yeah.
pick another three that I'm really.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, it's interesting. So the first book we're going to talk about, this didn't make my top five, but it was so close. This would have been number six. Because I
uh,
always rank all the books from one to, in this case, 17. Um, and it's interesting because I did enjoy this. I did enjoy this, and I don't know. Maybe after further reflection, maybe it would make my top five, whatever. But I didn't put it in my list initially. Um, but it's Action Comics number 1081, written by Mark Waid, art by Clayton Henry, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Dave Sharp. So, being that this is in your list, it's only number six for me. I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on it?
well, I it, part of it was a little bit of my ego. Because I remember I went off on a little bit of a rant on the last issue of Action Comics, and you accused me of, it's the lawyer in me coming out, and I was talking about why can't Phantom Zone criminals they never get a chance of parole, or they always seem, or do they, who gets to release them? Are they forever condemned? I mean, they can't all be that bad, and that's actually incorporated in this story, much to my surprise, because I hadn't read this issue. Uh, because last week when Action Comics came out, or last week when Action Comics came out, there was also 17 titles or 18 titles, and there was just too damn much to read. But in any event, I really liked the way this ended. I thought this brought a lot of justice to Mon-el. Uh, the way this ended, Mon-el has a very specific role in the Phantom Zone. The Phantom Zone, it ends with the Superman family in a very clever fashion coming up with a brilliant plan to lure in all the Phantom Zone criminals, the remaining Phantom Zone criminals that were scattered throughout space and various sections of the galaxy. It was a plan to sort of lure them in by allowing themselves to get the Superman family allowed themselves to get beaten up by Phantom Zone criminals, and what you thought was the Phantom King threatening to kill the Superman family, but in a horrible manner, using a very complex machine whereby all the Phantom Zone criminals would use their heat vision to power this new machine up and cause an explosion, turning all the Superman family, Superman and Supergirl, et cetera, turning their bodies into living kryptonite, and they would die slow, agonizing, torturous death. And it's all nothing but a trap to lure all the Phantom Zone criminals in. And instead of the explosion that was threatened, in fact, it was all misdirection. It was actually a giant Phantom Zone projector, and it lured the Phantom Zone criminals into a trap. It was very well done, very well played. I actually like it. It's not too often that, and maybe this is a little bit of an insult to Superman and his family, but it's not too often you see Superman, pull off a brilliant a plan like that I, the reader, never saw coming. And maybe others saw it coming, but I didn't. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it worked very well. And I particularly like the final fate of Mon-el, the Phantom Zone. It's now possible for Phantom Zone criminals on good behavior to be released. He is essentially the parole officer of the Phantom Zone. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was very well done. The way Mark Waid sort of revitalized and sort of re-energized and almost rebooted slash revamped Phantom Zone lore and Phantom Zone mythology into the modern continuity and modern age, and did a good job of reconciling the sort of the conflicting manners in which the Phantom Zone has been portrayed over the last 5 years in the various storylines that we've read, that some of which seem to contradict each other. I thought it was very well done, and it was an excellent ending, a great 12-part story, and yeah, and it's something where I might even be inclined to pick it up as a trade. But do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, and I love the twist as well. John Jones, masquerading as Zerda or Zerdu, whatever his name is. Yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. The Clayton Henry Hart was fantastic. Love the fact that Mon-el is going to be the warden. Although I feel bad, I still feel bad for him. He doesn't deserve to be in the Phantom Zone. We know he'll eventually, be. They'll find a way to release him. Brainiac 5, finds a cure for the lead poisoning that can threaten Daxamites, and he becomes part of the Legion of Superheroes. I really hope we get in 2025 a Legion of Superheroes title written by Mark Waid. And then the last thing I'll say, let me give the credits. I guess credit where credit is due. I don't know if if that's the nicest thing to say, considering what I'm about to say about the backup. But it's written by Mariko Tamaki, art by Skylar Patridge, colors by Marisa Louise, letters by Becca Carey. I think the art overall throughout the series was pretty strong, but at the end of the day, this backup just didn't work. I kept saying, well, maybe they'll be able to stick the landing. Maybe if you read them all together, it's going to matter, or it's going to make a good story. But I think even if you read all the backups together, I think it still is a very weak story. It just didn't work. It feels like a little bit of setup for something else to come. We never really did get an understanding of who this character is. They become the judge at the end. It's like sort of circular, but it just didn't work, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Rocky.
Well, just that this wasn't a very compelling villain, and it also failed to. We still never got an answer. Why was Supergirl the one that had to be done for this mission? This didn't seem like a particularly. It didn't seem like a mission that required Supergirl. It could have been any superpowered individual. It could have been any. It could have been a Green Lantern. It could have been a number of Green Lanterns. I don't really. I didn't see the big deal here. I didn't. There's nothing special about the villain at all. I thought, other than the fact that it seemed to have like a brother sister sort of like uncomfortable sort of dichotomy there. Even Power Girl was wondering why were you chosen, and it was just deeply unsatisfying. Yeah, I just this was a significant miss, and it's unfortunate because it added to the price point, and um, Yeah, I mean, thankfully, when you buy the trade for the Phantom Zone series, it won't have the backup. And if DC is smart, they won't even bother printing this Supergirl in a trade because it'd be a waste of paper. That's
Yeah, I mean, Supergirl says I think it had something to do with Krypton, understanding what it means to, understanding what it means to understand, something beyond the devastation of Krypton, and out of pain, something greater and longer lasting. I didn't get any of that from the story.
yeah. Neither did I. I don't
Yeah,
even know what.
like
Where was
what are
that
you
from?
talking about? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just
like
yeah, ridiculous,
yeah,
ridiculous. Anyway, up next, Batman, Santa Claus, Silver Knight returns. This is the final issue. Written by Jeff Parker, art by Lucas Kettner, Michelle Bandini, and then some epilogue art by Bernard Chang, colors by Marcelo Maiello, letters by Pat Broso. This is not on either of our top 10. Um, for my notes, I just have ended with great holiday themes, and the art was okay. So
yeah,
yeah, it just wasn't as strong as last year's holiday weekly. So
yeah. Yeah, I will
uh,
say it did a good job of having a whole diverse select of DC superheroes, but and it's going to be a good rendition because now we got two Christmases in a row where you got this sort of this Silent Night series, and it's going to be interesting to see if DC keeps this tradition up uh, every year. We'll have to wait and see.
yeah. The only thing of consequence that happens is Santa Claus gets a Justice League membership card. So all
Of
right,
course he
moving
does.
on. Moving on, Batman the Long Halloween, the last Halloween, issue number 4 from writer Jeff Loeb. Cliff Chang handles the art in this issue. Dave Stewart on colors, Richard Starking's letters and design. This is on your top.
Yeah, well, I actually I really enjoyed this. I love Cliff Chang's art, and I say again, it's amazing. How despite the fact that I know it's not Tim Sale doing the art. Obviously, this is a tribute. This whole series is a tribute to him. I just always I mean, my mind tricks myself into thinking it's Tim Sale's art, and that's a compliment to all the artists. And in this case, it's Cliff Chang on this particular issue. And I love this issue because it actually has Dick Grayson basically going to Catwoman and luring Catwoman back into the Batcave as Batman is having a hard time. He's healing from his wounds, and he's not doing a very good job. Batman is dying, and despite Alfred's best efforts to revive him, Batman needs a reason to be revived. He needs sort of a reason to live, and interestingly enough, this is probably one of the first. Dick knows that Dick Grayson's old enough to know that there's a bond between Catwoman and Batman, but he's not he's maybe too young to realize the true significance of it. But he knows he wants her help, and he goes out of his way to go back, and he he uses knockout gas to knock out. Cat Selina, and then brings her back to the cave to basically revive Batman again. Solomon Grundy is revived. He was one of the rogues because various members of Batman's rogues gallery have been killed, and the mystery thickens. In this of course is the Christmas issue, and then it ends with the appearance of the Joker, which is significant. What role is he going to play? And there's a hint that the Calendar Man is likely going to escape from Arkham because his cage was weakened by Damian himself when Damian and Catwoman were sort of doing a little mini battle there in the middle of the issue. But in any event, I thought that the dialogue was clear and crisp. I thought it was very powerful. I thought it showed what clearly is one of the early interactions between Batman and Catwoman, and the significance that Catwoman has had in Batman's life as early as year one. Because I think this is a year one or maybe a year two Batman tale, and I think it adds a lot. It adds a lot to the Batman lore, and again, it's Jeff Lobb does a good job of building on the mystery in the story overall, and it does a really good job here. And I particularly love. I actually, as much as the cover A's on this series are really good, I really like the cover B's where it shows various, you know, usually just faces. And in this particular issue, it was Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson's face on the cover, and past issues. Last issue we had the Penguin, and then, anyways, that The covers are really good, and the story is good and continues to be entertaining. Any thoughts?
Yeah, this is the first one where it didn't feel very modern to me. That felt a little more classic, and not that I've minded the modern feel. It's been interesting, but this is the first one where it really felt like of the era, because the it's not that it feels golden age, because it feels more consequential than that. What doesn't have the two-dimensional characterization and storytelling that golden age does, but they feel sort of instantly classic. All the long Halloween stories do, but the first few issues of this have felt sort of more modern. This one doesn't. It feels like it has that old school feel. But you're right about Robin. Like my notes, Robin has a lot of agency. Him deciding to go and get Selena and help um, use her Bruce's feelings for her to have him fight for survival or what have you, fight to wake up. So that showed a lot to me. As far as the art goes, very solid art, and I don't mean that in terms of quality. I mean it's very it the line weights are thick, and it feels very solid, like very grounded. It's really interesting. Cliff Chang tends to use heavier line weights, but for him, this style for me, for him, just felt, it felt really thick. Like the art just felt, everything was grounded. It didn't feel um, like delicate at all. It felt very very just, solid is the best, the best word I can use to describe it. So yeah, good issue. All right. Up next, another book that's, it's not in either of our top 10. It's Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham, Book 3 by Rafael Grampa. He's the writer and the artist. Mateus Lopez and Valentina Napolitano on colors, John Workman on letters. For my notes, I just have no flow. Dr. Geist, a new villain that's introduced here, has a lot of potential. Um, and the art is gorgeous. The art is gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. Rafael Grampa is putting his all into this. My comment would be, you should have waited, DC, till it was all done and then started releasing it, because
Yeah.
it has. I don't even remember what happened last time, and I didn't have time because there were 17 books to go back and reread issue 1 or issue 2. Um, there's a couple of new characters. I mentioned Geist. There's also this little kid who seems to be inspired by the Joker uh, uh, on the cover as well. Very creepy. And so I think all that really works. Obviously, there's a noir edition, which is what Rocky's showing here, which has black, white, and red, where you really get to see Grandpa's art. So, the fact that they're releasing these noir editions on the same day, it shows that they know they have something special with Grandpa's art. And I think Raphael has some really interesting ideas, and maybe there can be some flow and it can be an interesting story, but not when you only release one every 6 months. By that time, again, I've forgotten what's happened. Um, and it doesn't, like, each individual issue doesn't hook me enough and pull me in enough to make me want to go. In my mind, I'm like, I need to go back and skim through or reread the previous issue to remember what's going on. Um, but again, it's not so. This doesn't pull me in so much that I do that immediately. And it also has to do with the fact that there's so many other books this week to read. So yeah, it's unfortunate. I sound like a broken record when I say this kind of stuff, where, when you release books this late, nobody cares. And yet DC continues to do it, right? Look at Batman 89 Echoes, which had a lot of potential. This has even more potential, even better art. But I find myself not, while I'm reading it, I'm irritated that I don't understand it, because it's been so long since the previous issue's been released. I mean, it's been a year and a half, and we've only gotten 3 issues of this. And I get it. If that's, there's a ton of detail. There's so much detail, and it's long. It's way oversized. It's
Yeah.
52 pages, so it's double sized basically, 2.5 really. So again, like DC, you should have waited until he had 3 issues, 4 issues, whatever, drawn before you started releasing it, or even the whole thing. Because again, the lateness of it is robbing it of all its potential, of all of its impact. Because just don't or don't even release it at all as a monthly, and just could have released it as a collected edition. Now they're not going to do that because they want to double dip, right? Because there are people that buy the single issues, that are going to buy there's people that are going to buy the noir edition and the colored edition and then buy the collected edition. So I get it.
Yeah.
But again, you could have waited until he had more of it done, at least on a bi-monthly, which I think even bi-monthly doesn't really work. But I mean, 3 issues in 18 months is just not okay. It's just not okay. So anyway, anything to add, Rocky?
Uh, I will say the cover. There's cover B is absolutely gorgeous. The noir, the cover for the noir edition. I apologize. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's I think that's an automatic cover buy. For some reason, my prediction, and I'm probably wrong, but I'll make the prediction anyway. I think this is going to be a cover that people are going to want to own. I think this cover looks absolutely amazing. I just got a gut feeling that it's going to be on a lot of people's cover buys because it's absolutely gorgeous. But I agree with you. I mean, I there's some awesome things that happen in this comic. And it's really emphasized on the noir, on the black and white noir pages, but I couldn't remember the past plot points. But the visuals are fantastic. Grandpa's art is absolutely fantastic, and I do owe it to read the whole thing, and I have a feeling if they collect this whole thing as a hardcover, a noir hardcover, I'll probably end up picking it up because I loved the first 2 issues. I remember that. I enjoyed that. And I probably would have enjoyed book 3 more had I remembered more of what book 1 and 2 were.
Yeah, there definitely wasn't as big of a gap between the first two as there was between this issue and the previous one. So again, that it's just frustrating because it's a it's clear it's a mistake. You're making an editorial decision or a publishing decision that's really poor. It's a bad choice. It's a bad decision. It's a mistake to do it that way. However you want to put it, and it's so easily rectifiable. It's so obvious that this hurts sales. It hurts the flow of the story. Like it's just so obvious. But I don't know. Maybe DC Publishing is not. Maybe not responsible for it. Maybe it's the decisions coming from higher up. I don't know. But it's bad. It's a poor choice. So anyway, that's not even on either one of our top lists. We talked about it way too long. Let me
Sure.
move on to the next one. This is on your top three, and I'm curious if it really is on your top three or just something you wanted to talk about. It's Absolute Wonder Woman #3. Kelly Thompson's the writer. Hayden Sherman is the artist. Jordy Biller on colors and Becca Carey on letters. And I only say that because you and I have had some conversations off camera about this and why we
Yeah.
think maybe it's not working. So anyway, give us your thoughts.
Well, I got. I've yet to do. I've always wanted to do my own rant video on Absolute Wonder Woman, and I know in my discussions with you, I've I've I got mixed feeling. I got very strong mixed feelings about Absolute Wonder Woman. I will say this: I did my top 20 DC titles, and it almost never made my top 20, but it did. And I think I put it at number 20 or 19 or something, because I do love the concept. I love the concept so much, and I think that the reason why I'm kind of surprised at how many people love Absolute Wonder Woman. I actually am surprised because but then when I think to myself, even though I think Wonder Woman is in character, to me is so similar to the mainstream Wonder Woman in terms of her character, but where I have to give Kelly Thompson credit and Hayden Sherman credit is, despite the fact that I think the story is just it masters the art of mediocrity so well, and this is an issue as a prime example of that. It wows the reader with with stuff that doesn't, in my view, I don't think is that big a deal at all, and it's shock value. Wonder Woman doesn't have an arm. Wonder Woman sacrificed her arm for Steve Trevor in order to get him off the island of hell. Oh, okay. I guess that's. I don't know why I find that so underwhelming, but it's kind of cool. There's a lot of mythology. There's still so much about Wonder Woman's upbringing on Hell, raised by Cersei, that we don't know. And meanwhile, in this third issue, we hit the ground running. She's fighting the Tetracide. She needs to save the people of Gateway City from the power of this monstrous Tetracide. And there's only so much she can do. She can hold it off with her wrapping her nemesis lasso around it. Hayden Sherman's art It's very good. The colors are bang on. I mean, it does look pretty cool. Dare I say that red Nemesis lasso? It's as bright and as vibrant as the yellow magic lasso in the mainstream universe. It's pretty cool. This is a good. It's a good monster battle scene. And this is juxtaposed against flashbacks of Steve Trevor when they were back on the Wild Isle of Hell itself, with where Diana was talking to her mother Cersei about how are we going to get Steve off the island, and she talks so highly of Steve. For some reason, she thinks Steve is a great hero in man's world. And I don't know why she thinks that. Did Steve brag about his heroism, or do they have a way to access what happens on man's world? I'm still unclear how Wonder Woman knows anything about the rest of the world. How would she know? Does Cersei have access to that? Do they have a magical crystal ball that they're viewing man's world or viewing the rest of humanity that they even know? How do they know about all these prophecies about how? I got a lot of questions, and I'm the one thing that bothers me is, but it doesn't seem to bother other people. So I'm in the minority on this. Is that I really want that information ahead of time, because it feels I feel a little bit like I'm being sort of pulled, and I feel a little bit lost. Having said that, there's a cool factor here. There is a cool factor here. Wonder Woman sacrificing her arm. While initially, I got to tell you, and I don't think this is a good sign. I initially laughed out loud when I saw that, because I thought, this is ridiculous. I think it takes away from the tattoos that were on the arm, quite frankly. I thought it was cool that she had all these hexes on her arm, their tattoos, but now she lost her arm and her entire arm is just magic based. But I guess it's kind of cool. But once again, it's window dressing. Wonder Woman has a giant sword. She's got a red lasso and she's missing an arm, and her arm is a magic arm. Okay, that's cool. Meanwhile, we hear, this tetracide creature she's Wonder Woman seems to know so much. She's so comfortable. She's ridiculously, I think, overly comfortable. She knows exactly what to do in Gateway City. You'd think she was born and raised in Gateway City, despite on the one hand, she appears to be an outsider. On the other hand, she seems to immediately catch on to the fact that this has worldwide media. She speaks to reporters. She immediately seems to be, she can hold her own against the military generals. This has, I hate to say it, all the hallmarks of a good old-fashioned Mary Sue. And I can't say that for Absolute Batman or Superman, because they're a different story. But she was alone with Cersei and raised on hell. Where does she even, she just seems to, I guess she was just born this way. And that's my only issue with it. But it's a minor gripe, because I turn around and here's my conflict. I'm entertained. It's one of the first issues I read. It's one of the first issues I want to read. And yet I'm kind of hard on it in a way. And perhaps I'm being a little bit unfair. We get Cheetah. We get Barbara Minerva makes an appearance. Just like Steve Trevor is the same Steve Trevor is in the mainstream universe. He's a guy in the military. Barbara Minerva is the same person she is in the mainstream universe. No creativity there. No, she's an archaeologist. So again, she's not much different. I can tell you that with respect to, and unfortunately I don't think, well, hint, hint, spoiler for other issues, that's not going to change with respect to other aspects of Wonder Woman's characters that are in mainstream Wonder Woman. I don't find there's enough creativity. When I say creativity, there's creativity. I mean, new feeling like there's new ideas here. I'm just not feeling this. It's feeling just sort of mediocre, and it hasn't quite. While I say it hasn't quite grabbed me, you ask, well, why did I put it on my list? It's because, goddamn, I want Wonder Woman to kick ass. I want her to use that sword. I want her to be aggressive, and I'm really hoping she does some of that. She hasn't really done it yet. She still looks doe-eyed to me. Hayden Sherman draws her like a doe-eyed instead of a dumb blonde. She looks like a doe-eyed brunette, and yet I'm supposed to believe she's this great, powerful warrior, and I guess she is. But there's just such a, I don't know. I got mixed feelings. I don't know if I'm probably not making any sense, but I got mixed feelings on this, and I need you to sort of steer me clear. Do you have an opinion on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, I'm. It's definitely the weakest of the three absolute titles. But it's so interesting. because I agree with you. You say kind of mediocre. I agree, but for completely different reasons. Mediocre. Like you say, there's nothing fresh. Like I think the number one thing about it is the new ideas that Kelly Thompson is bringing. Um, she has for the first couple of issues, seemed to be the most closely of the three characters, the Trinity, the most closely aligned with who she is in the main DC universe. We talked about that before. This is the first issue where now we're really starting to see that she is quite different from the Diana that we know. Yes, she is missing an arm. She does, kind of her first, if she's confronted with a problem, her first inclination, her first tendency is to use magic to solve it, right? That's not, yes, there's magic and it's had, more of a prominent role in various eras of Wonder Woman. Um, but it's certainly not the first thing that she thinks of. Usually it's, something sort of physical, or she'll use her lasso or whatever to solve a problem. Um, she's using her strength, her physical strength, as opposed to this version of Wonder Woman raised by Cersei. So it makes sense that I'm confronted with a problem. I'm going to turn to magic. I'm going to use my magic sword, or I'm going to use my, magic flying Pegasus, or I'm going to use a magic spell that makes everybody in Gateway City deaf so they can't hear the call of the Tetracide. That's different. That's interesting. Her arm missing. That's different. That's interesting. Again, I don't really feel the whole, Mary Sue kind of thing. Yeah, she can stand up to generals. Yeah, she knows what to do. At the end of the day, it's a city under siege. Um, and she knows what to do in the case of a city being under siege, attacked by a giant monster, because she grew up in hell where, her and her mother were kind of always a city under siege being attacked by monsters. So I don't find it, unrealistic that she wouldn't, know what to do. She spent a lot of time with Steve Trevor, who knows what Trevor, told her or whatever. And I also kind of think, we don't know what she and Cersei are able to view. For all we know, they're conjuring up a spell that allows them to see into whatever our version of reality or what have you, where she's viewed, she knows what media is, she knows what TV is, whatever. So yeah, those to me aren't really criticisms that I think about. For me, mostly it's the aesthetic of the story. You mentioned at times Hayden Sherman drawing her looking doe-eyed. Yeah, I completely agree. It's just this aesthetic that's very common in sequential storytelling, where if you draw a character with really big eyes, that tends to indicate this kind of innocence, and that should not be at all where Wonder Woman comes from. So it's the aesthetic of the art, and the art, it's got great detail and it's very dynamic. I just don't know that it's the right choice. Like Hayden Sherman's style is the right choice, but on the other hand, there are certain times, that page right there, when it's zoomed in, the top panel there, where it's zoomed in on her eyes, in no way is she looking doe-eyed right there. She looks
Yeah,
formidable. She looks
it's
like
true.
she's assessing something intelligently. So it's so frustrating, because at times it seems like he's nailing it with, kind of the tone he's evoking in his art, but at other times it very much is not working. So yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see. We know that there have been other artists announced that are gonna, do an issue or two, and I'm gonna be very curious to see, how do I feel about this story and the plot and the big story beats when someone else is drawing it that has a completely different style than Hayden Sherman. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, in my mind, Absolute Wonder Woman is in a distant third to Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman. So all right. Up next, another book that's not on either of our lists, but it was relatively entertaining. DC Horror Presents issue number 3. The first story is written by Francesco Francavilla. He also handles the art. The Sithonian Dawn. It's a Batman story with Batman being buried alive, and it's fantastic because Francavilla knows exactly how to capture the right aesthetic, especially for a story he's writing. And then the second one is written and drawn by Patrick Horvath. If you think that name sounds familiar, he's the one that did the breakout hit of 2023, 2024, which was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. And it's basically an Adam Strange story where Adam Strange accidentally brings back some spores from the planet Ron that infects everybody on Earth, and their heads get really big. They look like beach balls, and they pop, and these spores come out. when they communicate. It's super creepy. That's what I wrote for my notes for this. Literally just say creepy. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Rocky.
Oh yeah, I just that Patrick Horvath story is awesome. When he comes back, and first of all, it's absolutely horrific. The idea that he made the epic mistake of he delivers a virus from his planet of Rand to Earth, and he's unaware of it. And by the time he gets back to Earth to see if just to undo some of the damage, too late. The damage has been done, and the spores that grow out of people's heads. You see Superman's head about to burst. It's only his superpowers that are preventing his head from exploding at the end. And Batman saying to him, we have a couple questions we'd like to ask you. So, and that's how it ends. End with a question mark. So, anyways, I thought it was epic. It doesn't even need. It doesn't even need to have a part two, because I like the fact that it ends with that, and you're left wondering what this horrific landscape, and how are they going to overcome this, if they even can. So I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, it's really really fantastic. Like I said, super creepy. Well, next up we have Black Canary Best of the Best, issue number 2. This was definitely in my top 5. Written by Tom King, Ryan Sook as the artist, Dave Stewart on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. We are really leaning into the relationship between Black Canary and her mother. You can start to kind of see why she is the way that she is in terms of Black Canary and the relationship with her mother. And her mother is, man, for lack of any better term, she is such a hard ass. She's so like unmerciful. But at the end of the day, when you think, okay, why would Black Canary even have a chance against Lady Shiva? It's because of the upbringing that Black Canary had, and it's because of the fact that when Black Canary knew she was going to have this fight, she went to her mother and asked to be trained. And even now, her mother is unflinching, uncompromising, and just a complete hard ass. And it's sort of tragic in a way, because we know her mother's suffering from an illness, probably cancer, based on kind of the context of the story, and that's definitely shown in the next issue even more. But again, that relationship between mother and daughter is really what this story is all about. And at the end, when Black Canary's talking to her mother's laying in bed having collapsed, and her mother basically putting it on her like, you have to show them who you are. You have to win. Like, and if there's anything that can motivate Black Canary to win an unwinnable fight against Lady Shiva, it's her mother, who has raised her a certain way to take no crap from anybody, and also been extremely hard on her. But kind of her her dying wish, you need to win. So if anything can motivate Black Canary to somehow do the impossible and transcend her physical abilities, it's going to be that statement from her mother, on her deathbed, basically saying, yeah, you need to win. The other part of why this is really up there for me, and I consider it for Book of the Week, is the Ryan Sook art. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Sook. I think he's immensely talented. He's a fantastic storyteller. And this, in my mind, is the best work I've ever seen that he's ever done. And, when I talked to Ryan when he was on the show, I hope you guys all had a chance to listen to that conversation with Tom King and Ryan and I. Ryan mentioned that he thought it was some of the best work he's done. I don't remember if he said it was number one, if he could single it out. But he credited a lot of that with the fact that he got the whole entire script, right? So he could kind of pace it out visually in terms of knowing what story beats to put where, because he knew exactly how it was all gonna be paced out visually, because he had the whole entire story. But that's not to sell Ryan short, even though he maybe had that kind of advantage, I guess you'd say, or the fact that it allowed him to do that. Don't I'm not going to give any of the credit for how fantastic this art is. It's not that simple. It's not just, okay, you had the complete story, so you got to lay it out, the visual story beats. He still has to execute. And the execution here for his line work and his choices visually, that all comes down to him and his talent. There's a couple of pages where we see Black Canary training, and they're kind of like montage pieces. You can almost hear like the music from Rocky IV playing in the background when she's, doing push-ups or lifting weights or doing pull-ups or whatever it is. And it's just so fantastic. She's doing like a one handstand on some bricks, and she's jumping rope and she's lifting weights, and it's just so well done. Um, like, again, you feel the effort that she's putting in, and once you get to that last page of this issue, and her mother saying, "Yeah, you have to win," um, you can kind of understand why she's putting in all that work. So yeah, I just thought this was a brilliant issue. Um, I do think it's kind of funny and entertaining that this whole story came out of, oh, who would win in a fight kind of conversations that comic book fans have been having for years. And yeah, Tom King talked about being at a Batman retreat and having that come up. And that's basically how this story started. So yeah, fantastic issue. What do you think?
Well, I do enjoy the character work for Black Canary and the relationship that she has with her mother, and it's actually the most interesting character is Black Canary's mother, and it actually makes me curious to learn more, and that part of the story I find it very very interesting, and I'm enjoying it for that reason, and certainly the Ryan Sook's art, and I uh, it's a lot of fun. I've also peeked ahead. Have read the subsequent issue. I think that the character work is even going to get better. My only concern, and I stated it from the beginning, is I've got some concerns. I don't want, you know, Lady Shiva is clearly been made. She's being portrayed as sort of like the wrestler, the bad wrestler. I mean, Lady Shiva even spits on Black Canary, and he's not familiar with the past between these two. Lady Shiva respects Dinah Lance. She respects Black Canary. She certainly would go out of her way to defeat Black Canary. They have to get each other to surrender in the fight. But there's sort of a level of almost campiness to Lady Shiva's behavior here at times that's not, I think, not reflective of the character as I would like to see. But that is a minor nitpick. But I hope at the end, um, I hope it doesn't come too much at the continued expense of Lady Shiva's character, and that because I think it would be very easy, because we have to remember that Black Canary herself is being blackmailed, which sort of led into this fight. And who's to say Lady Shiva is not blackmailed in some way as well, which may explain, I'm hoping, some of her behavior, like the nefarious villain in a WCW wrestling match. But in any event, I'm enjoying it. And you mentioned the art. Oh my God, Ryan Sook's art. It's absolutely fantastic. The fight scenes are excellent, and they only get better too. So it's yeah. So I can understand why this particular week, which despite 17 titles, there's arguably slim pickings for pick of the week. I can see this being in the top 5.
Yeah, it's interesting. I won't go so far as to say nobody cares. You're the only person that cares about Lady. Like, it's
Yeah,
Lady
I know.
Shiva, but I know actually that there are Lady Shiva does have her dedicated fans, which is interesting to me because like part of me is like, I don't really care if they're getting, like, Lady Shiva's a bad guy, like, eh, so whatever. This doesn't, nothing that she's doing is out of character for me. So yeah, I find that interesting. But yeah, I know there are
I
people
get
that
it.
yeah, they're like, no, this is out of character her because this whatever. I don't give that much thought to Lady Shiva's character. I just think, well, I'll save it. I'll save my thoughts on Lady Shiva for next week when we talk about Batgirl 3. I'll just yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, Harley Quinn number 46 on neither of our lists. Written by Elliot Kalin. Mindy Lee is the artist. Triona Farrell on colors. Lucas Catoni on letters. Let's see. My notes say there's a thin line between love and hate with Harley and her main nemesis here. There's some physical attraction, but yet they can't stand each other. Um, and I think Mindy Lee's art really works and it's fun, but I just don't know how this is being received. Obviously, Harley Quinn has a big following. Is this working? Is this sort of zany, fun Harley working? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I would say it's not working for me. it's not working for me, and I'm not
I,
into it. This is,
I'm shocked that
but
you're still reading it, to be honest.
yeah, well,
I like if
I,
yeah, if I was
I'm
you
always
and
holding
felt
up hope.
like you do about Harley, I would not be reading this. So,
Yeah,
all right, up next we have Detective Comics number 1092. Definitely in my top five. I gotta imagine this would have been in your top five as well if I hadn't put it on
yeah,
mine.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Tom Taylor is the writer. Mikhail Yanin handles the art and the colors. Um, this feels a little bit like a bridge issue. It's a little slower paced. Um, Also, I felt like, and maybe this is because Mikhail Yanin is doing his own colors. I mean, I love it that he's getting a chance to do his own colors because it establishes a certain feel, a certain aesthetic for the story, which I really enjoy. But the line work is just not as sharp as I'm used to seeing from him. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if he's feeling a little of a time crunch because he's also doing the colors, or it's because he's not cleaning up his lines at all in the color work. I'm not really sure. It's still fantastic art. Don't get me wrong, but it's just something I noticed that at times it didn't seem as clean as usual. I also noticed that Damien, he's got longer hair than he usually does, which I kind of like. I think it kind of works. A little bit of a cringe moment with Bruce sleeping with this woman that's young enough to be his daughter, which is super super creepy. But yeah, again, a bit of a bridge issue. Tom Taylor kind of putting the pieces in place, giving more clues that this Sangral that Bruce is taking, this sort of fountain of youth formula, if you will, may be tied into what's going on with these young criminals being killed because um, like their blood is being drained and they look desiccated and old. So it's almost like their life force is being taken. So yeah, some clues to what might be going on. So yeah, overall, a pretty strong issue, but again, a little bit slower. A little bit felt like we got a little bit less of kind of forward momentum in the story than we've had from the previous two. So anything to add?
yeah, yeah. I love Scarlet, man. She's a cool character, and she can hold her own in a fight. She undoubtedly has undergone the same similar sort of medical treatments that Bruce Wayne has in terms of the injections that have made him healed in some of his wounds. She clearly has taken some. She's fairly competent in a fight. At one point, they're mugged, and she holds her own. And Bruce Wayne has to pretend to be. He can't be Batman, so he's got to pretend to be somewhat incompetent as a fighter, but he doesn't need to worry. Scarlet's there to save him, and then he does his part. And then, of course, it didn't bother me that they slept together, but I'm a Purian fanboy. To me, it's like, way to go, Bruce. Nice. It can't always be Selena. Selena's got no problem, spreading her wings, so to speak. He can spread his cape. What the hell? So all the power to him. And frankly, can you ask for a better artist to draw moments of intimacy than Mikhail Janin? I mean, come on, it's awesome. It's really cool. The Purian fanboy in me was quite enjoyed it, and yeah, the plot thickens, the mystery thickens, and this is just an absolute. It's excellent. This is definitely going to be a candidate for me for just on the strength of the story, which I really like, adding a new dimension to the Joe Chill legacy, and just the art. I think the it's going to make for this might be. My next hardcover collection, or I'm very very picky with my hardcovers collections, but this might be one of them. I'm hoping, but we shall see.
Yeah, it wasn't even so much the age. It just the fact that she's got a I don't know the connection to his father. I don't know. It wasn't just the age thing. The age thing was kind of the least of it. It felt like he was like sleeping with a relative.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what made it creepy to me. I don't know. So anyway, up next we have the first issue of Metamorpho. Metamorpho, the Element Man. Also didn't make either of our top 10, although it was close for me. Yeah, number 8 out of the 17. From my notes, I put it had a very much a Bronze Age feel, which is something I've never said before. Like I've read books that have a Golden Age feel or a Silver Age feel, but never a Bronze Age. So that was kind of interesting. But it's written by Al Ewing. Steve Lieber is the artist. Lee Lowridge on colors. Ferran Delgado handles the letters. But great plot, great character. The art's pitch perfect. This new villain that's introduced is pretty interesting as well. Mister
Mr.
Three.
Three.
Yeah, the triple state man because he can be like gas, solid, or liquid. So
Yeah.
yeah, overall pretty good, but didn't quite make my top 5 this week.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Al Ewing here. This is something that I would not have chosen. I'm not super familiar with all of Al Ewing's work, but for some reason I always think of him as the sort of like the cosmic guy over at Marvel, or he was, and for if you'd have told me of him of all people was going to be writing Metamorpho, the Element Man, I thought what? That's kind of an odd choice. Yet, what is the character work in this comic is excellent. It does have sort of you say a Bronze Age feel. You're right, it does. It also has some Silver Age elements and a little bit of silliness to it, but enough verisimilitude that it works. But the character work, it's amazing. Metamorpho is in love with Sapphire Stagg, Simon Stagg's daughter. Meanwhile, Java, the caveman of 1,000 sorrows, he has a crush on Sapphire, and so there's he's jealous. And you got Urania Blackwell, who's sort of like the female Metamorpho. She's got a crush on Metamorpho, and then you got Mister Three, who's the villain, and you got all these little tensions, entwined throughout the story as it progresses and moves forward. And somebody is clearly trying to kill Metamorpho, and it ends very conveniently at the end. As much as Sapphire Stagg doesn't want it to be the case, Urania Blackwell has to stick around to help protect Metamorpho from and be his bodyguard moving forward, and that's just fostering further tensions between the sort of triangles that are going on. So I actually thought it was pretty well done for a character that honestly it's never been a particular favorite of my character ever, but this was entertaining. I got to give Al Ewing that.
You definitely should have put it in your top 5. You had that much to say about it for sure. Al Ewing, I'm most well known for doing Immortal Hulk over at Marvel.
That's right. Yeah.
But he's done a ton of stuff over there. All right, up next, Justice League Unlimited #2, definitely in my top 5. Mark Waid is the writer, Dan Mora on art, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Ariana Maher on letters. The thing that strikes me the most, like the first note that I have, is Mark Waid's doing a fantastic job of balancing telling a Justice League story with the Justice League characters, and granted, it's Justice League Unlimited, so the sky's the limit on the amount of characters he's using. But he's doing such a good job of telling the story that he wants to tell in Justice League, which in this case is the fact that what's going on with the parademons now that Darkseid is dead, basically, and they're like parademon that have been hiding out at various places. In this case, on Earth, in the jungle in like Brazil or somewhere. They're sort of awakened by the death of Darkseid, and they attack the local populace and what have you. That's the story that's being told here with the Justice League. I mean, that's a Justice League level threat, and they're fighting against it and what have you. So that's the story that's being told here, and Waid does a fantastic job of telling that story. But what an incredible balance of telling that story while tying into so many other things that are going on, whether it be the upcoming Justice League The Atom Project, first issue's coming out next week, or Challengers of the Unknown, the Christopher Cantwell series, which also, they're based on the Justice League Watchtower satellite as well. And the first issue of that came out last week. Like, it's a really great job of saying, hey, the Justice League Unlimited book is a book you need to be reading if you want to understand what's going on in the DC universe. You don't need to be reading everything, but if you're reading this, you're going to get hints of what's going on in other books, and the overall feel of what's happening at DC, which makes sense, because I sort of feel like Mark Waid, the baton has been passed, right, from Joshua Williamson, kind of show running the DC superhero corner of their universe. The baton has been passed to Mark Waid, and what a great, talented writer, and what a perfect choice to be kind of plotting what's going on with the DC superhero universe, along with Williamson. He's still heavily involved. So is Scott Snyder. Snyder maybe a little bit more over on the Absolute Universe side of things. Williamson maybe with a foot in each of those worlds. But it's just such a fantastic job. Also, the Dan Mora art I thought was really, really great. The cover is cool. The color choices are interesting. That's the way I'm going to put it. Tamara Bonvillain on colors, like, I say it all the time. Primary colors really make it feel classically super heroic. These are not primary colors, so I wonder about that choice. Like, why are we choosing to color it with these sort of pastel colors, these muted colors? It's an interesting choice. And then the last thing that I'll point out is that Mark Waid sort of reestablishes John Jones' classic origin rather than him, fleeing political oppression on Mars or whatever. He was accidentally transported here by Dr. Eldril and then, got stuck here and became a detective and whatever. I always liked that. It is very much a sort of a Silver Agey origin, rather than his more modern origin. But I was fine with that. And we also found out that John Jones, Martian Manhunter, he doesn't have all his powers, so that's kind of interesting. It's the first time we've heard hints of that. We know with the consequences of absolute power that some people lost their powers completely. Some people had their powers dialed up to 11. Some people have powers that have never had them before, like Lois Lane. John has some of his powers, but not all, which is sort of interesting. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I think it's fantastic. Um, it's interesting because the Action comics that came out weekly, I've said before, and I still feel the same. I wish that had come out over a longer period of time. Like just give Mark Waid um, a regular schedule for Action, because you wonder if things would have gotten fleshed out a little bit more, or would have changed at all if you had more time to think about it, as opposed to having it on that compressed timeline. With Justice League, I always feel the exact opposite, but that's just I'm wanting, the story's been so good. I'm wanting more of it faster. Like I almost wish it came out twice a month, but I probably would, if it came out twice a month, I'd probably be complaining um, that it's coming out too fast and it feels rushed or what have you. So yeah, it's just, I'm really enjoying it. Like I can't remember the last time I enjoyed a Justice League book this much. It has been well before the New 52. Like
Yeah.
it's been a long time. Maybe when Justice League first started in '80s, the Bwahaha era. That might have been since then that I've enjoyed Justice League this much. It's just really, really fantastic book. So
Yeah,
uh,
I like how Doctor Occult and Atom Smasher sort of played a role here, like sort of like the lesser tier characters, but we actually got to know them, and always in a setting that's action packed and has an impact, and scenes that matter, and every one of these battle sequences has a purpose to it. It's not just he's not Mark Waid is masterful at using up all the space he has, because he's got a lot of characters to work with. In fact, arguably more characters than any other Justice League writer in the history of the Justice League comics, because it's called Unlimited for a reason. And he uses it up extremely well, and even having all the atoms work together to take down a character that had stolen the Atom Smasher's powers, and Doctor Occult's dialogue and interaction with Martian Manhunter, and the sort of they sort of bonded there, and how it connected Doctor Occult's. It connected Doctor Occult's history with the overlap with Martian Manhunter's origin, as you already talked about, going back to Martian Manhunter's original iteration of his origin. Done very well done. And Dan Mora's art, I mean, what can you say? I mean, the guy's probably, arguably, artist of the year, quite frankly. If probably he would get, we not that we're doing that, but Dan Mora would definitely be on anyone's top 5 for best artists of 2024. He's certainly was one of the most hardest working for for DC in 2024, between Absolute Power, his Moroccan World's Finest, Justice League Unlimited. I mean, the guy's just a workhorse, and it shows. He's really good.
yeah, we used to do those comic source awards. We used to give best artist, best writer, whatever. We should definitely think about. I mean, I want to get back to it, but yeah, we'll see. It's hard to do when you aren't caught up on all your reading, but maybe next year.
Yeah,
Last thing I'll mention is in terms of using Doctor Occult, having him show up here. Mark Waid said last time he was on, he wants to have one or two characters that are more obscure, that are lesser used, lesser known in each issue to go along with. And we've seen that so far with the Young Airwave, Firestorm, now Doctor Occult. So fantastic.
yeah, for sure.
All right, next up, a book that is not on either of our list, and I knew this wasn't going to be in my top 5. I try to keep an open mind going into it, but I knew based on how I felt about the first issue that this is just not a series that's really going to speak to me. And yeah, I certainly um, was the case. So it's Green Lantern Dark #2, written by Tate Bromball, art and cover by Werther Della Edra, colors by Giovanni Nero, and letters by Tom Napolitano. Now I say all that to say that I did like this better than number one,
Yeah.
but it's still
Yeah.
a very dreary story and a very dreary book. But it's Green Lantern Dark, and maybe it's supposed to be dreary and morose and what have you. So if that's what they're going for, hey, they're doing a fantastic job. But
Yeah.
again, I dislike the art. The story is not compelling to me. It seems like it's just a lot of people sitting around whining. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. So
Well, I will say this: what almost you're right. This does feel this was a. I thought this was a substantially better issue than the first issue. The first
no, it
issue,
is better.
I hated the main character. Hated the main character. I thought the first issue was. I thought this. I thought it was a one shot. I thought it was a one shot. I didn't know this was a series. That's a
Yeah,
mistake making this a series. But having
like
said
five
that,
issues.
yeah, but I mean, I will say this: this what saved this issue for me was the fact that the town itself really wants Green Lantern to be this hero, and this Green Lantern is she's very unlikable, but the sort of like the sidekick holds her accountable, screams at her, and holds her accountable for her seeming indifference. She's clearly an alcoholic. She drinks too much. She's too dismissive of her powers. She doesn't realize how important she is to the continued safety and preservation of humanity. I mean, she does need sort of a bitch slap, and she sort of got one here from the younger characters in this story, and I actually appreciated that. And I'm hoping that as a result of that, that sort of like snaps her back into on the path to heroism a little bit here. I realize it's a take Bromwell is doing is trying to wants to make her a hard edge sort of alcoholic sort of I get, but at the same time. I think Tate Bromwell made a mistake in my books of maybe making her a little bit too unlikable in that opening issue, but maybe she's trying to dig herself out of the hole she created for the character. We shall see.
Well, I don't know. Again, I'm Rocky. I'm calling you out. That's in your top five based on the amount of the things you've had to say about it.
Sorry.
All right. Up next, we have Power Girl number 23. Not on either of our top five, although, I mean, I don't think so. Maybe it's in Rocky's. Leah Williams is the writer. Adriana Mello handles the art. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors. Becca Carey on letters. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. DC doesn't know what to do with Power Girl. She's not Karen Starr anymore, but she has plenty of love for Karen Starr's money, apparently. But this isn't working, and the art feels sluggish. So, yeah,
Uh,
not
I,
good.
I just want to say I don't know what Leigh Williams is thinking, but to have this ejecta, I thought it was interesting how she made ejecta sort of like the new power. Her origin of ejecta is similar to Power Girls, where she's sort of raised by the symbiote sort of computer entity or whatever computer, and but after going through all these issues, 4 issues here battling ejecta, she literally at the end of this issue lets ejecta go and says, or if I ever see you again, that's going to be a problem for you, and doesn't even capture her, doesn't actually, just lets her go. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's hero. That's her. That's supposed to be heroic. Anyways, at the ending, it was just deplorable. It was just shame on. I mean, come on, shame on Power Girl. She can't possibly be that stupid. But good news, though. Good news. She didn't abandon the Karen Starr name. Paige, her new name, Paige, she still kept the Karen Starr identity because she has the identity of Karen Starr, who's a millionaire, because she said to her roommate that she's a millionaire because she still has that Karen Starr identity. She said Karen Starr is a millionaire. And, so there's that. So there might be some hope there that maybe in order to, she's going to keep some of the connections because she used to be the owner of a $1 billion computer tech company back in the New 52. But in any event, there was some hope here that maybe the storylines could change moving forward.
Nah, it just makes it even worse. This book is just so bad. It's worse, right? Okay, you're changing your name, but you're keeping it. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Die Hard, right? Where John McClane's wife he even says, he's like, oh, you didn't miss my last name except when you're signing checks. Here we go, Power Girl. Doesn't miss the Karen Starr name, but except when she's signing checks.
Yeah.
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 Book is just bad. Book is just bad. We shouldn't even put it on our list at all. Shouldn't even bring it up.
Oh,
All right.
you're
Up next, we
harsh.
have Superman. Leigh Williams is so talented. This is an anathema. I don't understand. So anyway, moving on. Superman number 21, written by Joshua Williamson. Dan Mora handles the art, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Ariana Mayer. This is in my top five, but I do feel like it's the weakest of the Joshua Williamson written Superman issues. But yet, it still makes my top five because there are some things I really liked about it. The date night between Lois and Clark was a little cringy. Like seeing them throw rocks at a target on the moon was just silly. It didn't really feel. Well, we've had these date nights between them before, and the fact that Lois now has powers, I don't really think it would change their date night that much, and that's kind of borne out actually at the end, where you see them just walking
Yeah.
in Smallville in their civilian identity, saying, "Oh, this is us. This is our yeah." Why would it? Like you've always been who you are to each other, so I don't know why it would change just because like Lois has powers, whatever. But still, their date, that part of the story is the weakest part of the story. The best part of the story is the interludes that we get, catching up with what's going on with other characters in the book, whether it be some hints of romance between this amnesic version of Lex Luthor and Mercy, or Jimmy and Silver Banshee or Siobhan sitting on the couch watching what I assume is a horror movie based on Jimmy's expression, how he gets more horrified going along, or what Doomsday's up to. And it's not only fantastic art capturing all these character moments by Dan Mora. When we get some of these other interludes, whether it be the specifically called out as an interlude with Doomsday, how the art style changes a little bit to be a little less tight with the line work and kind of feel a little more visceral, or when it's a bit of a throwback to the Superman Doomsday fight, where it kind of almost looks like Dan Jurgens' art of the era. Mora does a really, really fantastic job. It's just incredible how he can kind of change his style. Um, I also thought the Alejandro Sanchez color choices here were interesting. Like why it's been Superman has been a relatively consistent look in terms of the book has been colored with very primary colors for the majority of its run, and now all of a sudden we're switching to a more muted palette. I don't understand that. I'm not sure why that color choice was made. I don't care for it as much. But at the end, we're introduced to this. I guess we'll call it a consolidation or a consortium of planets who have basically been decimated by Doomsday, and the survivors of those planets have teamed up and they've consolidated their technology and their forces to go and hunt Doomsday, and they call themselves the Aftermath. They're what's left in the aftermath of Doomsday's rampages. That's a really interesting concept. So they're there on Earth, and they say, "We know you guys have captured Doomsday. You're going to turn him over to us. He needs to face justice, or what have you." Um, and it's probably going to be a situation, because I've read a comic or two in my day, where this aftermath sort of misses the forest for the trees, and they're in danger of becoming that thing that they, espouse to hate. All right, so we hate Doomsday because he destroyed all our worlds. So give us Doomsday, or we're going to destroy your world. Like you're becoming the thing that you hate, you morons. So, but they're, again, they're going to miss the forest for the trees because that's what these sort of characters in comics do. But it is an interesting concept, um, especially because the spokesperson for the Aftermath, he looks like what Doomsday looked like before Doomsday was revealed, right? Where he's wearing like the whole entire shroud over his face and he has the round goggles. He very much looks like what Doomsday looked like when he first appeared before all the trappings got torn away and we saw what he truly looked like. So anyway, it makes my top five, but in a better week, it probably wouldn't. So anyway, what are your thoughts, Rocky?
I enjoyed it. I thought I enjoyed this sort of break, and I enjoyed the moments between Superman and Lois. I I actually enjoyed it. Maybe it was because I like seeing a little bit of romance in the Superman trailer, which I really enjoyed. And I love the moments between Jimmy and the Silver Banshee there. And also, I'd like to see Mercy. God forbid, Mercy is fun. Mercy's always harbored some unrequited love for Lex Luthor. And now that Lex Luthor sort of lost his memory, will Lex Luthor and Mercy get together? There's hints of that. So I think that's interesting. And there's also, I think there's going to be, isn't there going to be a Lex miniseries that comes out in a couple weeks?
It's
Lex
a
in the
one
city
shot.
or
I think it's a
it's
one
a one
shot.
shot.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
I'm not sure if maybe that will explore further the Lex Mercy relationship. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I thought this was a good issue, and I agree with you. You know, we've had Joshua Williamson has had such a spectacular year and run on Superman that this one every issue's been an adrenaline rush, and this one really has slowed things down. So for that reason, it might seem a little bit underwhelming. But even when he slowed it down, it's still entertaining enough to at least make a top five in a week with 17 comics. That's something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, up next. This doesn't make either our top five. I really don't have much to say about it at all. It's Flash number 16. Cy Spurrier is the writer. Art by Vrasko Gregev. Colors by Matt Herms. Letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. We get the Weather Wizard as an actual wizard when he's in Skartaris. So I don't know what's up with Skartaris and why that's happening. This is probably the weakest Vasco Gregev art that I've seen before. And yeah, not really enjoying Flash. Hasn't changed, even though it's not there's not quite as much science gobbledygook as before. So
Well, I will say what's interesting here is what Cy Spurrier's attempt. Cy Spurrier is obviously trying to duplicate some of the family time that Jeremy Adams duplicated on the title, and Cy Spurrier, at least in two spots here, he makes some. He actually, I think, takes a pot shot at readers that were criticizing his run because at one point in a conversation between Jay and Irie, Irie actually even says to him, Jay starts talking science. She goes, "Oh no, not more don't talk more science, gobbledygook." She's, so I think he's acknowledging that maybe things got a little bit too esoteric in his initial run, and he also acknowledged there was a comment about he makes an offhanded comment, one of the characters, about constructive criticism that all all there's nothing worse than what all writers hate is constructive criticism or something, and or constructive dialogue. He made some comment about constructive dialogue, which I think is kind of funny because I think a lot of our criticisms is that a lot of his dialogue has not been particularly constructive in The Flash. It's been too esoteric as to be almost meaningless. The other thing is, while I don't really understand what's going on, there's two Flashes. It still doesn't make sense why there's two Flashes. I still don't understand that. There's one Wally West on the Justice League satellite and one in Skartaris. Also, the offspring of the Speed Force. The Speed Force gave birth to another force. Apparently, that's the dog. Their dog is now the offspring of the Speed Force, and because when they're on Skartaris, Wally and one of the Wallies and the kids they're not supposed to have access to their powers for reasons which I don't get. Because of the magic on Skartaris, but because they took the energy source, Jay figured out that for some reason they still have their powers, and it's because of the dog, which is the embodiment of the offspring of the Speed Force. Their dog now. Their dog, Foxy, their dog. So I don't know. I guess now the Flash family has a dog. Superman family has Crypto, and now the Flash family has Foxy the dog, or whatever the hell it is. So there's that. So I mean, it had some moments, but it's still better than his first run by far. But not quite nailing it.
but also in your top five.
Well, I want to say some commentary about some of this stuff. I'm just saying.
You're going on and on. Like I just don't feel that this book is worthy of me. I mean, you're right. Yeah, all that stuff happens, and yeah, Irie does say I thought we were done with all this science junk, and clearly he's commenting on his criticism of his run. But I just
Yeah.
don't feel like this book is like worth me putting that much effort to talk about it. I mean, that was the whole thing about us like deciding to like not, because if you don't have anything nice to say,
Yeah.
don't say anything at all, right? That whole
Yeah.
cliche.
Uh,
So yeah, it's just I was
uh,
gonna say it's not it's not working for me, and yeah, it's
yeah.
not working.
Not
If
my
it's
cup of
working for
tea.
some
Okay.
people, then
All right.
but yeah, it has been a few weeks since I've gone like typically, and this is something I need to do for Absolute Wonder Woman as well, based on and Harley Quinn, like to go the site Comic Book Roundup is very useful to get an overall feel. Like maybe stuff's not working for us, and our values and what makes a good comic don't always align, but frequently they do. And so oftentimes we're like, yeah, we like the same books, um, but yeah, maybe because again we're kind of the same, we're the same age, relatively close to the same age or whatever. a Harley Quinn book, it doesn't necessarily speak to us, but maybe it's speaking to other people. And I wouldn't know that unless I go and I'd read what other people are saying. But that's been what's interesting about the Flash. If you go and look at Comic Book Roundup and look at the Flash, universally just started up a much higher grade than I would have given it, but it's just been falling and falling and falling, and it's never gone back up. So, but I haven't gone and looked in a few months, so we'll have to go and check it out. Anyway, moving on. This book, definitely a consideration for book of the week. One of the better ones this week. It's Green Arrow number 19 from writer Chris Condon. The art is by Montos, colors by Adriana Lucas, letters by Hassan Atswan Elhau. It's very much a street story. It's a little cliched in terms of feeling like a police procedural with this guy who comes in and has, something he can offer the police, right? Like if anybody watched our Christmas episode, we were talking about Castle, right? The show Castle a little bit, because it stars Nathan Fillion, and Fillion was in the Superman trailer. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? Like in that show Castle, Nathan Fillion is this, I think he's a writer of like mystery novels or something. And so he has this ability to kind of, help solve crimes because his mind works that way. And he's a consultant for the police. And it's definitely procedural where, each episode they solve a crime and that sort of thing. But it's a little tropey and it's a little cliched. We're getting the same thing here with Green Lantern. They're Green Arrow rather. They're trying to solve a crime. Who's this, freshwater killer or clean water killer, or whoever. And the police need help and they're in over their head. There's all these murders going on, the serial killer, whatever. And in comes this guy who has these special abilities that's going to help him solve the case. In this case, specifically the guy being Green Arrow. But there's a reason that those tropes and those cliches exist. As much as they can be overused and get a little tired at times if you're not bringing something fresh to them. The reason that they exist and the reason that they work is because people enjoy them. Right. And I am enjoying this. It very much has a police procedural feel. Yes, Green Arrow is going to help solve the crime. Of course, we have the one female cop, detective, or whatever that seems open to working with him. There seems to be a little sexual tension. Black Canary hasn't shown up, so I don't know if maybe it's the cat's away, the mice will play, or maybe it's just again, it's a little tropey that there's this attraction and there's like flirty back and forth, which is fun. But then you got the other old grizzled veteran cop who, wants to say, hey, what's this guy doing here? He's not a cop. He shouldn't be at the crime scene, blah, blah, blah. The guy that doesn't trust anybody and is just like an old curmudgeon, shows up as well. And so, yeah, it's just working. On top of that, you have the Montos art, which as much as I enjoyed Montos's art when he did the Green Lantern War Journal book, his art is even better suited for this type of story where it's more street, it's more visceral. It doesn't, typically Green Lantern art, you're out in space, it's cosmic, whatever. The art should feel a little cleaner. So I think his art style is better suited for this type of story. And then on top of that, it's not going to be as simple of this cut and dried case where this clean water killer is somebody that we have no empathy for and they're evil or whatever, because at the end, when Green Arrow unmasks them, it looks to be this woman who's suffering from some type of cancer, likely because she was poisoned by the water and the decisions to pollute water that the people that she's murdered that made, right? They were responsible for polluting the water. And Green Arrow's even said, it's like, yes, he's investigating and he wants to stop this clean water killer. But these people that are dying, he's not exactly shedding a tear because it's sort of, they did it to themselves. But definitely two wrongs don't make a right. But I'm sure we're going to learn more about the killer who was unmasked on the last page. But this is fantastic work from Christopher Condon. This is like, oh my God, does this not feel so completely different from anything we've had in Green Arrow for a long time? Certainly completely on the other end of the spectrum from what we had with the Green Arrow book, with what Joshua Williamson was doing with time travel and different dimensions and the Green Arrow family. Here we have Green Arrow working on kind of street level crime, trying to solve murders. He's solo. Even Black Canary's not here. Like, this is the exact opposite of what we had in the Williamson run, and I'm here for it. I love this. To me, this is what a Green Arrow book should be. This is what a Green Arrow solo title should be like. So
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree 100% with what you're going to say. I would just add that if ever there was a character that cheats on his girlfriend, it's Oliver Queen, and he should have some fun with this detective. That's all I got to add. I love this. I love the absence of the Green Arrow family, and if he's got to piss off Black Canary, why not? He's done it before. He's pissed off that pretty bird so many times. If you know, do it again. I mean, she's too busy beating up late or getting beat up by Lady Shiva anyway, so don't worry about it.
well, that's the thing. Like, if Black Canary could beat up Lady Shiva, she might be the last one you want to cheat on. But
Yeah, well, that's
I
true.
don't think they're, I don't think they're married right now. Like, I know
That's
they're
right.
pre New 52. They were married. I don't know. Maybe they have. Yeah, who knows? They have an open relationship. I don't know. So, uh, anyway, next up we have Batman Brave and the Bold, issue number 20. This is also not on either of our top five. There's four stories here, five stories actually. The Price by Ty Templeton. He's a writer artist. Monica Kubina on colors, Josh Reed on letters. Then Man's Underworld Part 2 by Dave Wilgos, Nicola Semegia on art, Rex Locus on colors, Steve Wands on letters. That's a team up Wonder Woman, Plastic Man. Keep It Down, Hassan Atzman Elhau is the writer and does the letters. I think that's his first writing credit as far as I know. Travis Mercer and Tom Dernick are the artists. Peter Pantazis on colors. And then Hive Mind Part 2, Animal Man story. Michael W. Conrad is the writer. Christopher Mitten on art. Yvonne Placencia on colors. Becca Carey on letters. And then The Tattoo, Simone DeMeo, writer and artist. Carlos M. Mangual on colors. Um, I This is the final issue of Batman Brave and the Bold. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God it is, because it hasn't been working. And again, I know I sound hypocritical because we were saying, do an anthology, and they did it, and it's just the stories just weren't that great. But I will say that Dave Welgels here does a fantastic characterization of Plastic Man, giving him more depth than I've ever seen anybody bring to the character. So that's got some potential there. Um, and then the Hassan Atzman Elhel story is onomatopoeia story. Does he? I didn't think he had powers, but here apparently it almost appears that he does. So maybe that's something to be explored. And uh, and I thought the worst story of all of them was the tattoo story by Simone DeMeo. I just didn't see the point of that. I thought it was particularly uninspiring. But again, I'm just glad this. I'm glad I'm not going to have to read Batman anthologies anymore because this was it was what was the previous Batman anthology, and then this one followed. It was Batman Urban Legends
That's right.
that
Yeah.
we had for a couple years, and then
Yeah.
just every month, just a giant Batman, just a giant crap of Batman stories. That
Yeah.
the quality, honestly, and I get it. Like you want a book that you can give people a chance to see what they can do, but the quality is just not there. And to do it
Well,
under Batman, so that you say it sells when a lot of these stories, the Michael W. Conrad story here being the perfect example. It's a team up of John Jones and Swamp Thing, um, exploring Animal Man's daughter. I can't remember her name, but anyway, exploring her
sure.
connection to the red and what have you.
Maxine Baker, I
Maxine,
think her name.
Maxine, right? Maxine
Yeah.
Baker. That doesn't have anything to do with Batman, but you throw it in here, and the story's not interesting. It's not good. Like what? What are you doing? And you're charging $10? Yeah.
Well,
Again,
I just a quick comment because you make an interesting point because I think it alludes to what we were talking about earlier about Justice League Unlimited, where Mark Waid, if you're going to introduce characters that we don't see very often, give them something to do in a popular title. Why Justice League Unlimited works so well, because oh my God, we get Doctor Occult of all things. Well, why hey, why not in Justice League? It would make more sense, for example, if like to me this story with Zatanna and Batmite, that was entertaining, and I'll give you a little bit of pushback. Some of these stories in Batman Brave and the Bold were much better, and some were even good. But I discovered them after the fact because I just didn't want to read this huge anthology. And I think maybe the better approach is to do what they're doing with Justice League Unlimited. Start using more of these characters in the mainstream titles themselves, and be more, creative in the storytelling, like Mark Waid is doing. He did a masterful job with He started doing it in World's Finest early on, and he's carried on doing that with Justice League Unlimited. Because if next week or next month in the pages of Justice League Unlimited suddenly Zatanna and Batmite showed up, I wouldn't bat an eye. Because I know it would make a lot of sense. But in any event,
Yeah, but
I'm glad
it
this
goes.
series is titled.
Yeah, it goes to my other point. Like we know Mark Waid can take these characters and make a good story. It goes to the point of them having used this anthology as a try. Like again, this is Hassan Atman Elhaus' first time he's ever written a comic.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Welgels hasn't written a lot of he's more known as an editor. So they did use this to hey, can you tell a good story? Can you hit a deadline? That sort of thing. But and I get it. It's tough to have somebody prove that they can do those things without you're not just going to give them their own title or give them a miniseries. It's much less of a commitment to see if they can do an anthology story. Um, but it's the wrong thing to do. Like the quality, yeah, there have been good stories, but consistently the quality hasn't been there. And DC does enough of the anthology specials now. Like we're going to get one for Valentine's Day, I'm sure, and then there's like a spring break one, and then a summer one, Halloween, Christmas. Like there's enough of they do them when there's an event to tie into the event. Like do them for those. I won't be super happy about that, but I understand. Or bring back the new talent showcase. Remember when they used to do that? Because then at least as a fan, you're spending your money on the new talent showcase. At least right? Well, I'm taking a chance here. It's a new talent showcase. These guys aren't veteran creators. Maybe the quality's not going to be, as high as it would be otherwise. But when you're putting the name Batman on it, DC's doing that because there's going to be people that buy this just because they buy anything that says Batman. So that's more the problem I have with it. But either way, it goes away. It's done, and happy about that. All right. Well, that does it for the books that are coming out that we're going to talk about in detail as far as single issues. The only other single issue that's out this week, we kind of mentioned it. The Batman Gargoyle of Gotham issue 3 has a noir edition in addition to the regular colored edition. And then in terms of collections this week, we have Nightwing Volume 6, Standing at the Edge. I think this brings to a close the Tom Taylor run. So 106 through 109 and then 111 through 113. And there's a soft cover and a hard cover, so whatever is your choice. Also, Batman Volume 3, I Am Bane. That's the Tom King run. So, again, if that's not your thing, don't bother picking it up. But it collects issues 16 through 20, 23 through 24, and Batman Annual 1 and 2. It just skips over those two button issues. So pick that up if you're so inclined. And then we've got the Batman Battle for the Cowl compendium that collects the entirety of that. And that's when everybody thought Batman, or everybody in the modern DCU thought Batman was dead. Obviously, we knew as readers that Darkseid's Omega Beams and Final Crisis had sent him back in time. But that is 432 pages. It collects a ton of that to see who was going to wear the cowl after Bruce was seemingly killed. And then finally, Deathstroke the Terminator by Marv Wolfman Omnibus, Volume 1 hardcover. This is the first solo Deathstroke series that came out in 1991. This collects issues 1 through 25, also annuals 1 and 2, New Teen Titans 70, Superman number 68, and material from Showcase 93, 6 through 11. It is 920 pages. So
Wow.
quite a bit, yeah, and yeah, I love that series. It's a fantastic series. Mike Zeck covers, which are gorgeous. Most of it written by Marv Wolfman, but also Len Wein wrote a lot of it. I think Mike Barron and Stephen Grant wrote some issues as well. So all legendary writers, and yeah, really really fantastic stuff. Very much of its time, though. Very much of the late '80s. All right, so that brings us to pick of the week, Rocky. Now that I'm taking notes for the last couple of weeks of 2024, getting in the habit of taking notes for everything and ranking everything.
Yeah.
In my goal going forward is to do the spreadsheet every week when I read my books and rank everything, so I have the notes, and then it'll help us do the Comic Source Awards at the end of the year because I'll have everything listed and know what my picks of the week were and what I would consider, if there's a specific moment that I loved in a book or whatever, I'll notate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got all my my 1 through 17 ranked, and I'm ready. So
So, well, you
I
go
go
first.
first. Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Well, I'll give an honorable mention to Green Arrow 19. That was number 2 on my list. I really, really enjoyed it. Can't wait to see more of what Christopher Condon is going to do. But number 1 on my list is Black Canary, Best of the Best, issue number 2 from Tom King and Ryan Sook. I'm specifically going to call out the incredible Ryan Sook art that really was the difference maker for me and why I chose this as my pick of the week. I give Tom King a lot of credit a lot of times for doing fantastic things with storytelling. And that's no exception here. I really enjoyed the relationship stuff between Dinah and her mother. Um, but the Ryan Sook art here really put this one over the top for me. So gets my pick.
Right on. Good choice. Yeah, my pick of the week was it was kind of an easier choice for me. I did enjoy Detective Comics quite a bit, but at the end of the day, I've got to go with, and I just got to find it here. I apologize. Sometimes it's hard for me to talk and do what I got to do at the same time. It's Batman Long Halloween, or the last
Wow.
Halloween. I actually I enjoyed it. I actually did. I did very much enjoy uh, the callbacks to Batman and Catwoman, and uh, I enjoyed it. I find myself enjoying the series more and more. I'm getting into the plot line more. And the thing is, I've never been a super huge Jeff Loeb fan, to be, if I'm brutally honest. But I'm sort of getting back in the groove, and I even went into storage. I had to pull some old files, and I found my old. I found my old hardcover of the last of the Long Halloween when it first came out back in the day. So I brought that back home too. So, anyways, yeah, that's my choice.
Yeah, I remember buying off the rack the Long
Yeah.
Halloween back in the day. I had all the single issues except somehow I missed issue 13. And so for years I had never read it because I didn't have the final issue. Like
Yeah.
I didn't read it as I was buying them monthly, and I was always planning on reading it once I was like 6 months behind. I was like, I'll just wait till it's done, then I'll read it all together. And then I never, somehow I missed the last issue. For years, I had never read it, and then yeah, I think eventually I got it. I bought like a hardcover or a soft cover and read it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think I've since gone back and bought issue 13, but I couldn't say that for certain. We'll see. But yeah, I'm curious. You probably aren't ranking yours the way I'm ranking mine, but what do you think the worst book was this week? Is that an easy
The
easy
uh
call,
the the
or the one you
worst
enjoyed
one.
the least?
Well, well, I want to be fair to Harley because I really just skim read it. I really
Okay,
just skim
yeah,
read it, so that would be unfair to me to say, and I want to be fair. I'm just um, there was, and by the way, I said something about everything a little bit because I do think Flash has gotten better and it had some funny moments, and so normally maybe I would say Flash, but no, I enjoyed it. Power Girl even had some moments too, but I would have to say that just the story wise with Power Girl, how it's up and down, it's just not quite landing. So I would probably have to go from what I read, excluding Harley, because I never really gave it a proper read. I'd probably say Power Girl would rank lowest on my list. I want to avoid using the word worst. It just
yeah,
ranks lowest this week.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's funny because you mentioned the three that are ranked lowest on my list. So Power Girl I have at 15, Flash I have at 16, and then Batman Brave and the Bold is the one I enjoyed the least
Yeah. Yeah.
at 17. So
Well, I
anyway,
like that Satana Batmite story. I thought that was
yeah,
kind of funny.
yeah.
But
But yeah, it wasn't quite enough to save it. I mean, something's got to be ranked last.
yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. And again, apologies for this coming out super late. It'll just be a few days and we'll have out the first episode for the new year. So don't forget, if you're listening to the audio only version, hey, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. You can find the audio only version of this every week on the Comic Source podcast audio feed. Just go to wherever you get your podcast, whatever platform or app you prefer. do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe, and you have thousands and thousands of previous episodes to enjoy. But if that's how you're listening to this, be sure you head over to Rocky's YouTube channel, Comic Space Boom !! On YouTube. Subscribe, like this video, ring the notification bell so you know when new content is coming out on Rocky's channel, and you get a chance to see the books and the art that we're talking about. And leave some comments below as well, and let us know what you're enjoying about the books. If there was, something that you thought was fantastic or something we missed or what have you. We love getting conversations going in the comments. So that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate it as always, everybody, and we'll talk to you in the new year.
Catch you later.